to do. You have to keep on squeezing costs at home to pay for delivery, as we call it. So I'd tell my staff, we're going to take a 2 to 3% cut every year on program allowance and other things, just so we can be heard properly. And that is a difficult message to get across, except if you go to a capital city and hear the BBC and FM, and then you realize that the price is worth paying. But it is really difficult to manage sometimes to make sure your program quality is still high and your delivery is good at a budget which is never seems to be quite enough. And I'm sure the VOA has that same problem.
You also mentioned satellite broadcasting. BBC World Service is on the World Space Afristar satellite. Is that beginning to be a factor in your listening mix?
I don't think it's a factor yet in terms of big numbers. It's a factor in terms of some people with a bit of money and who like gadgets listening on that. And we're watching carefully now as World Space gets its price down. You know, you all know very well, Kim, that the price started around $400, gone to $200. And making more. There's talk about selling at $90, $70. It's still way out of the pocket of many people in Africa. But on the other hand, you know, one has been surprised by technologies before. So we're pleased we've got our relationship with World Space and really kind of watching brief. It's part of our policy to be on every outlet we possibly can, because who can guess this market as the media changes?
Now, Mr. Langridge, during the interview, you've been mentioning improvements in the domestic radio broadcasting in Africa, and that makes me curious about something. Traditionally, listeners in Africa have used World Service as what we call in the United States a surrogate broadcaster. In other words, a substitute for the domestic news about Africa, which has just not been available from the domestic media, you know, either because of political restrictions or just poor economies. Do you see some shift there in your news mix, whereas you'll be broadcasting less news about Africa as the competence in journalism increases in Africa, and doing more international news on World Service?
I think that's probably the way we'll go. We will keep our regional news programs, Network Africa and Focus on Africa, but try and keep them regional and kind of high-level, top view. That will give space for domestic news to be on the air and to grow. And then people will want the news from their own country. They may want to check with us from time to time. And we hope they will come to us for African news about Africa and international news. We would expect that to happen. We hope it happens. And, of course, we do see it happening in places like Dakar, Ghana, very, very capable broadcasters there. And we're happy to have our niche, which is no adverts, African news, international news, but not close-up local news, no ambulance chasing, and no second-guessing stories. Let the local stations do that. They'll do it very much better than we can.
Now, as far as the languages to which you broadcast to Africa, any changes in view, any additions or deletions?
Oh, I'd love to add. I mean, I do envy the VOA broadcasting in Amharic to a lovely big audience, and Yoruba and Igbo we get big audiences in Nigeria, and we're always asked, why have you got Hausa and not those other two? No, we can't add any more for economic reasons, and the reasons I referred to earlier, that we're hard-pressed to produce our programs in good quality and then pay for all these different delivery ways of getting it to the listener. So adding new languages is not on, I'm afraid.
Barry Langridge is head of the African and Middle East region of BBC World Service.